So we're talking about the direction of reactions. So just to put you back in the big picture, we're talking about the two things that are important to know about reactions: the direction and the rate. And in the last video, we talked about how free energy is important for determining the spontaneous direction of the reaction. And now we're going to talk about how concentration plays a role in determining the reaction. So if I take a reaction, so let me draw one down here. So let's say that the direction of the spontaneous reaction is towards the right. Just because the direction of the reaction is spontaneously towards the right does not mean that I take 10 of this and make 10 of this and then now have 0 of this. So that's sometimes how we oversimplify reactions in our mind, but that's not how it occurs. I don't take A and B and convert it entirely to C plus D. Instead, what happens is that I'll make A and B for a while, I'll make C and D for a while, and then the reaction will reach something called equilibrium, where it starts going backwards. It starts making A and B and C and D. So now, at the same rate I'm making C and D, I'm also making A and B. So now I'll have balanced amounts of those. They won't be the same necessarily, but they'll not be changing, right? So I might end up with 6 of this and 4 of this, for example, and it just stays that way with the reaction going back and forth. And so that would theoretically be what happens with most chemical reactions in the test tube. But remember, this is biology, and so in reality, in living cells, chemical reactions never reach equilibrium, or rather rarely, and usually when we die. So when we die, we will reach equilibrium. Other than that, we're pretty much not in equilibrium. The reason why is, so let me write that equation one more time here. As long as I keep putting in more A and B, and as long as I keep getting rid of C and D, then I will keep the reaction going this way, right? So as long as I keep getting new starting material and as long as I keep getting rid of product, I can keep the direction of the reaction running this way. So how does the cell do this? Well, this is us, for example, eating, right? This is us going to the bathroom, right? So obviously it's in the cellular level, so removing waste from the cell, bringing new materials into the cell. But fundamentally that is related to our body processes too. We're always bringing in new materials, new reactant, and getting rid of product that we're done with. And that will keep our cells out of equilibrium. So this is what equilibrium would look like in a closed system, so not the cell. The cell is not a closed system, but this is what it would look like. At first, I had some starting material in my tank of water, and so at first the water would flow from this tank to this tank, but eventually the water level evens out. So now the water's still connected, so there's water going this way, water going this way, but there's no net movement of the water, it's just balanced. And so if you imagine water flow being a little generator, there's no energy here anymore. So if the cell goes to equilibrium, so this would be equilibrium, there's no longer any energy to get out of the process, right? So this would be bad for the cell, and that's why I said, this is going to happen when we die. Our chemical reactions will go to equilibrium, but we're no longer able to process energy, and that's why our bodies will go towards disorder. Instead, what is happening in the cell is that there's always new materials coming in. So here's the faucet, starting material or reactants coming in, and a drain at the bottom. And as long as I keep draining out my products and bringing in new reactants, I will keep the flow going. So I'll have a movement this way. It'll keep going this direction. And so that will keep allowing the body to extract energy. So this would be this multiple chemical reactions happening. I can extract energy at all of these different steps. So imagine if I close this drain for a second. this would begin to fill up, and that would come to equilibrium, right? So that's why, when an organism or a cell dies, these processes end and it will shift into equilibrium. So cells avoid equilibrium by always bringing in new starting material and letting product leave. And so that will keep the reaction going in a specific direction. So equilibrium equals no direction to the reaction, or no net direction, but avoiding equilibrium will keep the reaction going in a specific direction. And so that's how it relates to the direction of reactions. So again, just to recap the big picture, we're talking about the direction of reaction. We talked about how free energy determines the spontaneous direction of the reaction, and how by preventing equilibrium, our cells are always keeping us moving in a specific direction in a chemical reaction.